My wealthy cousin humiliated me at her charity gala, not knowing I was the anonymous donor she was honoring. The invitation arrived in a cream envelope so thick it felt like wealth itself. Cordelia Whitmore requests the honor of your presence at the annual Whitmore Foundation Gala. Black tie required. I held it in the break room of the elementary school where I taught 4th grade, surrounded by construction paper turkeys and microwave leftovers. My coworker Jen glanced over my shoulder and whistled. That's the event of the year. Tickets are like $5,000. How'd you score an invite? I told her my cousin was hosting. Didn't mention that Cordelia and I hadn't spoken in 3 years. Didn't mention the last time we'd been in the same room. She'd introduced me to her friends as her charity case relative. I almost threw the invitation away. Should have. But there was a handwritten note on the back in Cordelia's perfect cursive. Please come, Natalie. It would mean so much to have family there. We're honoring someone very special. The words felt hollow, but something made me keep it. Maybe curiosity about who they were honoring. Maybe the masochistic urge to see how the other half lived. The Whitmore side of the family had always existed in a different universe from mine. My mother and Cordelia's father were siblings, but you'd never know it from how differently our lives had turned out. Uncle Richard had married into old money and multiplied it through real estate. My mother had married a teacher and died when I was 12, leaving my father to raise me on a public school salary. The gala was 3 weeks away. I had nothing appropriate to wear and no budget for a $5,000 ticket, but the invitation clearly stated complimentary for family. I went to a consignment shop and found a simple black dress that fit perfectly. Nothing designer. Nothing that would make me stand out. I'd learned early that blending in was safer around the Whitmores. Standing out meant becoming a target for Cordelia's particular brand of cruelty wrapped in concern. Poor Natalie, she'd say with that sympathetic head tilt. Still teaching? That's so noble. As if nobility was a consolation prize for not being rich. What Cordelia didn't know, what nobody knew except my accountant and lawyer, was that I had money. A lot of it. 2 years ago, my father died and left me his life insurance. But before that, when I was 25, I'd invested $5,000 in a startup that my college roommate's brother was launching. Some app for something. I barely understood it, but I'd believed in Danny's vision, even when everyone else called him crazy. That app sold to a tech giant for $800 million 3 years later. My $5,000 investment became $12 million overnight. I'd signed NDAs, kept my name off everything, paid my taxes quietly, and started giving it away even more quietly. The Whitmore Foundation was one of the charities I'd donated to, anonymously. $500,000 over the past 18 months, earmarked specifically for their education initiatives. Scholarships for kids from low-income families, school supplies for underfunded districts, art programs for public schools that couldn't afford them. Everything I wished I'd had growing up. The foundation sent thank you letters to a P.O. box I maintained under a shell corporation. They'd invited the anonymous donor to be honored at this year's gala. I'd declined through my lawyer. Apparently, they were honoring me anyway. The irony of attending my own honor ceremony as Cordelia's poor cousin wasn't lost on me. I drove to the venue in my 10-year-old Subaru, parking it between Mercedes and Teslas in the country club lot. The building glowed golden against the November evening, chandelier lights spilling through floor-to-ceiling windows. I could see figures in expensive gowns and tuxedos moving inside. My dress suddenly felt cheaper, my shoes from Payless instead of Prada. I sat in my car for 5 minutes giving myself a pep talk. You belong here. You're funding half their programs. But gratitude and the Whitmores had never mixed well. I finally forced myself out and walked toward the entrance, my heels clicking against expensive pavement. The doorman checked my invitation and waved me through. Inside, the country club was exactly as obscene as I'd imagined. Ice sculptures, champagne towers, a string quartet playing in the corner, servers circulating with trays of food I couldn't identify. The guests were a who's who of local wealth and power. I recognized the mayor, several city council members, CEOs whose faces I'd seen in the business section. Everyone looked comfortable here. I grabbed champagne from a passing server just to have something to do with my hands. Found a spot near a pillar where I could observe without being obvious. Cordelia appeared after 10 minutes and my stomach clenched. She looked stunning in a designer gown that probably cost more than I made in a month. Her dark hair was swept into an elegant updo, diamonds glittering at her throat and ears. She moved through the crowd like she owned it, which in a sense, she did. This was her event, her foundation technically, though it was funded by her father's money. She air-kissed cheeks and laughed at jokes and played the perfect socialite hostess. I watched her transform from the cousin who'd made my childhood miserable into this polished, poised version of herself, the mask she wore for the public. She spotted me. I saw the moment her eyes landed on me across the room. Her smile froze for a half second before recovering. She excused herself from her conversation and headed my way. My heart rate picked up. Full story is linked below or on my channel.